Hi everyone, recently I did a video where I read the first paragraphs of books I hadn't read yet and ranked them and sort of judged them kind of harshly according to the first paragraph and picked my favorite one to read. So I really enjoyed doing that video and it was pretty fun. So I was thinking, what if I ranked the first paragraphs of some of my favorite books? So that's what I have here today. So obviously I have already read all of these books, so I know how I feel about them. This is not going to be an actual ranking of these books, and most of them don't really compare to each other anyway. It's just going to be me reading the first paragraph of each book, and I'm gonna rank just the first paragraphs. For the actual ranking, I'm gonna try to rank off whether I think I would feel compelled to keep reading or what I would think about it if I hadn't read the book, which is kind of hard to do because obviously I have read the books. But other than that, I guess I can just talk about how well I think the first paragraph actually represents what the book is going to be like, because I have the feeling that the answer will be really not all that well. There's actually not that much you can tell from the first paragraph. So I'm just going to put these to the side and we'll just go through them. These are in no particular order. First, I grabbed Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. This is probably not one of my favorite Diana Wynne Jones books, but it's a really good Diana Wynne Jones book, and it's one that a lot of people have heard of, and I have a copy, so we'll start with this. If I can find the first page. All right. In the land of Ingery, where such things as 7-league boots and cloaks of invisibility really exist, it is quite a misfortune to be born the eldest of 3. Everyone knows you are the one who will fail first and worst if the 3 of you set out to seek your fortunes. Okay, I've been in kind of a fairy tale mood anyway recently. I think that's really cute. You kind of get a sense of the feeling of the land as well as the sense of humor about the eldest always failing. So I don't know, I quite like that. I think if I hadn't read Howl's Moving Castle before, at least based on how I'm feeling today, I think I would definitely want to keep reading. Okay, here's another author I have talked about a fair bit on the channel, and that's Connie Willis. This is To Say Nothing of the Dog, which is the first one. Actually, no, it's not the first one. Sorry, it's the first one I read, but it's in her Oxford time traveling series. It's about these time traveling historians from the future. And I don't know, I'm not going to say too much about the plot of this book. Some of the books are more dark and serious. This is probably the funniest one. There were 5 of us, Carruthers and the new recruit, and myself and Mr. Spivens and the verger. It was late afternoon on November the 15th, and we were in what was left of Coventry Cathedral, looking for the bishop's bird stump. I feel like it's not the most exciting first paragraph. There's also kind of a lot there, because if you know about World War II, like you know that Coventry Cathedral got bombed and it got destroyed, so you're probably getting some sort of sense of World War II from this, which is kind of part of the book, but also most of it's set in the Victorian era. And also, the main thing is I think you're like, what the heck is the bishop's bird stump? And honestly, the bishop's bird stump in this book is kind of a MacGuffin that you don't really know what it is for most of the book. I still don't really know what the bishop's bird stump is, but I think it does kind of give the tone of the book. Just from memory, you get even more of the tone of the book in the next paragraph when you find out that Mr. Spivens is, I think, the dog. So anyway, I really love this book. I don't know, I think probably I would still rank this below Howl's Moving Castle in how drawn in I feel at the moment, but I feel like you kind of get a feeling of the book from that first paragraph. I don't know, this is hard. I'm realizing already how hard it is to detach when I'm rereading something and I'm really attached to the book. I can read a lot more into a very small amount of text, whereas if it's something I know nothing about, it's just, does it grab my attention or not? And there are so many first paragraphs that really just don't stand well on their own, and it's a little bit silly to be doing this, but hey, it's fun. So now we have Good Omens, another very funny book that is one of my favorite books of all time by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. Also, I always forget that the subtitle of the book is The Nice and Accurate Prophecies of Agnes Nutter, Witch. So that already kind of tells you what this book is going to be like. The first paragraph is just, it was a nice day, which gives you absolutely nothing. But it's kind of, if you've read any Terry Pratchett, you kind of know what might be coming next. And I know from memory that the second paragraph is that all the days have been nice so far, because this is a prologue in the Garden of Eden where the angel Aziraphale and the serpent Crowley are, talking about the fall of man, basically. But yeah, I don't know. How do I rank that? Because I know what's coming, but probably I'm gonna rank this again. I'll put it second after Howl's Moving Castle, because I feel like even if you have no idea what's coming, when you'll at least read that and be like, what? All right, now we have some Brandon Sanderson, Warbreaker. I picked this just because, honestly, I was scared to do The Way of Kings, which has 2 prologues and then a first chapter that's also basically a prologue. This kind of has a prologue too, but I think Warbreaker is, to me, it's my favorite pre-Stormlight Brandon Sanderson book, so. It's funny, Vasher thought, how many things begin with my getting thrown into prison. I actually like that quite a lot. It's definitely, that is the kind of thing that Brandon Sanderson would find kind of amusing, and it kind of works for me too. But yeah, it does make you wonder, who is this guy? Why is he getting thrown in prison? Gives you a sense of the character a little bit. There's not that much else there, but it does intrigue you. So I feel like that might be my favorite so far, because I think I do like things that start with character or action overall, maybe. Next, here's one that's not fantasy or science fiction. I've talked about this recently as well. Kazuo Ishiguro, an artist of the floating world. So if you're not too familiar with Ishiguro, you might still have heard of Never Let Me Go, which is kind of science fiction. This is just historical fiction set in post-World War II Japan. I don't remember what the opening of this book is like at all. It's been a lot of years since I've read it. If on a sunny day you climb the steep path leading up from the little wooden bridge, still referred to around here as the Bridge of Hesitation, you will not have to walk far before the roof of my house becomes visible between the tops of 2 ginkgo trees. Is that how you say that? I've never said that. I should start over. If on a sunny day you climb the steep path leading up from the little wooden bridge, still referred to around here as the Bridge of Hesitation, you will not have to walk far before the roof of my house becomes visible between the tops of 2 ginkgo trees. Even if it did not occupy such a commanding position on the hill, the house would still stand out from all others nearby, so that as you come up the path, you may find yourself wondering what sort of wealthy man owns it. That's actually kind of a brilliant first paragraph, and I'm not sure if I appreciated it the first time I read the book, but what you can really get from that, in my opinion, is this guy is really full of himself, because it's a description from his point of view just of his house, but all he's thinking about is how grand the house looks. And that's just, it's a book with a very unreliable narrator. That is just his opinion. So it's not the most exciting opening. This is not an exciting book. This is a book about an old guy reflecting on his life. He was a propagandist. He was an artist who did a lot of propaganda in World War II, and he's also a very, very unreliable narrator. So, I don't know. I like it because I think it captures a sense of place and character with just that first descriptive paragraph. If I was reading this today for the first time, it doesn't get me super excited. I think I'll probably, again, put this third. So now that we're halfway through in the rankings, we can just review. I did Warbreaker, Howl's Moving Castle, An Artist of the Floating World, Good Omens, and To Say Nothing of the Dog. And this is so hard because I know where all of these books are going, and I can tell what the point of the first paragraph is, but I'm trying to evaluate it as if I knew nothing about what was coming next. This is a really hard exercise, guys. Okay, next we have, this is a bind-up of 2 books. It's Shards of Honor and Barrayar, the first 2 chronological books in the Miles Verkosigan series. These both focus around Cordelia Naismith, who is the main character's mom, basically. Well, she's the main character in the first 2 books, but the rest of the books are mostly about her son. And the first book is Shards of Honor, and it was Lois McMaster Bujold's first published book, I think. So, I don't remember exactly how this book opens. I do love this book. A sea of mist drifted through the cloud forest, soft, gray, luminescent. On the high ridges, the fog showed brighter as the morning sun began to warm and lift the moisture, although in the ravine, a cool, soundless dimness still counterfeited a pre-dawn twilight. That's interesting. That does absolutely nothing for me, and I don't think it's that good a first paragraph, because you can't tell. She's on an alien planet doing like an ecological survey right now, and you could not tell that from the first paragraph. There's absolutely no indication that this is not Earth. This could be anyone, anywhere. So it's a perfectly well-written description, but for me, that does nothing, you know? So that's kind of interesting to see, because of course, I still really like this book, but just based on the first paragraph, doesn't really do it for me. I think, honestly, I'll probably put this one last. All right, here's another one I haven't read probably since high school, but I read this book a lot of times when I was younger. This is I, Claudius by Robert Graves. It's historical fiction. It is from the point of view of the Emperor Claudius. This is telling basically the first part of his life up until when he becomes emperor, and it's mostly just about the sort of drama, backstabbing, and politics of the Roman imperial family, basically, and how they all do away with each other. Pretty dramatic. I, Tiberius Claudius Drusus Nero Germanicus, this, that, and the other, for I shall not trouble you yet with all my titles, who was once, and not so long ago either, known to my friends and relatives and associates as Claudius the Idiot, or that Claudius, or Claudius the Stammerer, or Claudius, or at best as poor Uncle Claudius, am now about to write this strange history of my life, starting from my earliest childhood and continuing year by year until I reached that fateful point of change where, some 8 years ago, at the age of 51, I suddenly found myself caught in what I may call the golden predicament, from which I have never since become disentangled. I actually think that's amazing. You really get a sense of the voice of the character. You get a sense of what the entire book is going to be about. Obviously, it's easy to get a sense of what the whole book will be about when the book is a character telling you about his own life and he says so. But I think just the voice and the way this book is told is probably its strength, because otherwise it's pretty much taken from history. So yeah, I think that's great. I think I would be pretty into that today if I picked that up. And I think this is probably my favorite so far, just in terms of sheer like voice and bringing you right into the book. Next, we have The Goblin Emperor by Katherine Addison. This is a new favorite. I read it for the first time about a year ago. I have reread it since then. I would read it again today. I love this book. Our friend Daniel just finished reading this as well. He really liked it. I think it's not a book that's for everyone, but the people that I've recommended it to have really liked it. Maya woke with his cousin's cold fingers digging into his shoulder. It's probably the hardest to judge books that start with single sentence paragraphs, but that's fine. Like, what I like about it is at least you're with the character, there's action, and you're wondering what's going on. Beyond that, you don't get that much. But what I think works about the opening of this book in general is it starts at the right point in the story, which is something that's kind of hard for a lot of books, right? It starts right when Maya is about to find out that his father has died unexpectedly along with his older brothers, and he is now going to have to become emperor. So it doesn't start with like his childhood, his backstory, whatever. It starts in the action. So I think that's something that works well in this book. But I mean, based on that first sentence, I don't know, I'm going to put this somewhere in the middle. Like maybe like fifth would be a good place for this right now, because you just don't get that much from that beginning. Next, we have Gideon the Ninth by Tamsyn Muir. This is another book I read about a year ago for the first time and really loved. And I remember loving this book right from the opening, like I really connected with the way that it was written. So I'm curious to reread this now, this first paragraph, and see what I think. In the myriadic year of our Lord, the 10,000th year of the King Undying, the kindly Prince of Death, Gideon Nav packed her sword, her shoes, and her dirty magazines, and she escaped from the house of the Ninth. Okay, that just makes me laugh. In the first sentence here, we have a parenthetical phrase, with dashes. There's an exclamation point, and there is this crazy contrast between this sort of highfalutin language and Gideon just packing her shoes and her dirty magazines. And that's kind of all the things that I really loved about the tone of this book that just sucked me in from the first page. So I remember reading that and being like, yes, I'm gonna love this. This is exactly what I think is funny. But I think if you read that and you're like, what? Why is that funny? Then this might not be the book for you. So I think in that sense, I think this is actually an amazing first sentence because you know right away if this is something you want to read or not, in my opinion. I think I'm going to put this second after I, Claudius. Okay, last one. City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. I loved this whole trilogy. The third one came out last year. I haven't thought about it as much recently because it's done, but I thought it would be fun to revisit this as well. Oh, okay. He was an easy mark. Another short first sentence. Which, of course, in real life, your eyes don't want to stop when you just read that. So I have to kind of force myself. I think that's pretty good. It doesn't tell you that much, but you're curious. Again, I think this will be probably somewhere in the middle. I'll figure out where to rank it in a second. But I feel like I also just need to say, the first time I read this book, I was sold before I got to the first page on this book because there is stuff that I don't always look at, but there's all this introductory stuff. We have the 6 tribes of the Jinn, and there's a little, description of each tribe of Jinn and where they're from and what they're like. There's a map of, basically the Middle East. And I was just so sold on the idea of world building that I was primed to love this book. So for me, I remember that's kind of what happened with this. I was really excited by the Middle Eastern fantasy. I was just really excited by all of it. And I did end up loving the series, but that's just an example to me of how sometimes other things about a book might sort of prime you to be excited about it. But as a first sentence, it's basically fine. I do like books that start with character, but I don't know where to put this. To me, this is kind of like 6th or something like that. I don't know. Just in the middle. All the ones in the middle are fine. So let's just quickly go over the rankings before I end the video. Okay, so I'm having a hard time stacking these, but here is our final ranking. So number 1, we had best. Okay, I just dropped all the books, but I think I remember the ranking. First, we had I, Claudius. Second, for me, was Gideon the Ninth. Third, Warbreaker. Fourth, Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. Fifth, I think, before I dropped everything, was An Artist of the Floating World. Then 6, Goblin Emperor. 7, City of Brass. 8, Good Omens. Although, that's still, I feel really conflicted about Good Omens still because, anytime a book starts with, it was a nice day, that's not serious. That's not a real start of a book. So, I don't know. It's kind of brilliant, even if you don't know what's coming. Maybe I take it all back and put this one first, but for now, I'll leave it where I have it. Then 9th, we had To Say Nothing of the Dog, and very sadly, 10th, my beloved Shards of Honor. But I still think this is a really good book. Don't be deterred by the first paragraph. Also, her writing improved a lot over the subsequent, many decades that she wrote in science fiction. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that. This was a really weird contrast to ranking books I hadn't read before because it's just so hard to try to judge in an objective way on books that I know what they're about, but it was still interesting. So let me know what you guys thought. If you haven't read these books, how did you react to the first paragraphs? Did it make you want to read them? Let me know.